Hey everybody, it's Mr. Norris, and during COVID I just wanted to make sure that you knew we're still going to be learning about tools, and I want to make sure you use your tools safely. So even if we don't get into the classroom this quarter, you'll still know how to use all of these tools just as if you were in my classroom. So let's get to our first one, shall we? This is the bandsaw. They say bandsaw because inside this machine right here, we have a band of saw and dust. But you'll see here, you have the saw blade, the wheels, saw blade there, and lots of dust because when we left back in March, we really left in a hurry. We did not come back. So some of this equipment needs a little more love. Anyway, this is the bandsaw. We will be using this when you get back, hopefully. Let's talk about each one of these parts as it is on the worksheet that you have. So first, we have the blade guard lock knob right here. This knob, that locks it. The second is the blade guard. See this thing? That guards the blade. That's why it's called the blade guard. You adjust your blade guard so that it is just about a few centimeters over what you're trying to cut. So if I was going to cut this piece of wood, I would bring it right up to the blade guard, and as you can see, that's right on top. So we want to raise the blade guard just about a centimeter and lock it. We don't want there to be a lot of play with the saw. So that is the blade guard lock knob, blade guard knob. That is the blade guard. Now, guess what this thing is called? That's right, it's a saw blade. And what do you think this thing over here is? It's the power switch. Never play with that though. That power switch right there, that's actually the lamp. So that's not the big power switch. That is the little one. This is the big power switch. We're not going to turn that on because I don't have on my goggles. So next, after power switch, we have number 6, which is the table. See that right there? That is the red circle of death. Keep your fingers out of the red circle of death and you'll never cut your fingers. If you don't keep your fingers out of the red circle of death, you may end up only being able to count to 9.5. I can count to 10. All right, moving on. Number 7, we don't have a miter gauge here. Let me look for one. Yes, we definitely don't have a miter gauge here, but the miter gauge allows you to cut at a specific angle. This lets you cut at a specific length. So if you wanted to cut at exactly 1/2 inch, you would lock the arm down here and you would cut, well, actually that would be more than 1/2 inch. You would look here, in that window, and that would tell you how close you're cutting. So if you wanted to cut 1/2 inch, you couldn't, because it's too close. And we never want to cut anything that small anyway. Smallest we want to cut something is about 2.5 to 3 inches. So we don't have our miter gauge, but the miter gauge would go here and it would help us cut at a specific angle. Those are all of the parts that we need to talk about. Now, let's talk about the next page. How to safely use our bandsaw. All right, so we're going to have to look at the A through F. What is the order in which that we do these things? The very first thing you need to do before you use any tool in any of my classes, or any tool anywhere for that matter, is you want to make sure that you are safe. And to be safe, you need to be. Check to make sure your hair is tied back, your sleeves are up, your watch and jewelry are in your pocket. Now, these sunglasses, not really a problem. I can actually use them to use the tools if I really wanted. But in my classroom, we have these wonderful safety goggles that people really mainly use in science classes, but this is what I'll be using today. So I am safe because, as you can see, my hair is pulled back, my sleeves are rolled up, all of my jewelry has been taken off. The next thing we need to do before we use the bandsaw is we need to lay the workpiece on the table, adjust the blade guard so that it's no more than 1/8 of an inch above the workpiece, and then lock the guard. So, remember what we did before. We take the workpiece, we put it on the table, we bring it right up to the blade guard, and we make sure that it is no more than 1/8 of an inch above. Now, if you'll look, the blade is touching the workpiece. We don't want that, so we get our workpiece out. You can have it a little in the red circle of death when you're getting ready, but you don't want it close to the blade guard. If you do that, you might end up damaging the blade. Let us continue. All right, so now we're going to clear the table, turn the machine on, and let it get up to full speed. So I clear the table. I do not have on my safety goggles, so we're not going to touch the machine until I do. I have my safety goggles on, and we are going to let the machine get up to full speed before we place anything here. The machine is definitely up to full speed, so what we're going to do, we're going to hope that this camera stays still while we cut. Now, we never do this with one hand. We do this with two hands. So I'm going to move the arm. I would already have something drawn on here to cut with two hands pushing forward. Then I do not clear until I have turned the blade off. Once I've turned the blade off and the blade is no longer running, then I can clear my work pieces. Do not clear before that. If you do, you may end up only counting to 9.5. Let's not let that happen. So, that is how we safely cut a piece. Now, once we've cut, cutting would have been number 4. So F, which is line up your mark with the blade. There we go. Line up your mark with the blade. Gently push the workpiece into the blade, keeping your fingers out of the red circle of death. So that was F. Now E is finish your cut, turn off the machine, wait for the blade to completely stop, and then D. We remove our scrap material off the table. So we did all of that. Now, let's look at the rest of the sheet, trues and falses. You tell me, true or false, you should start the blade, or you should start the saw with your workpiece touching the blade. False. True or false, make sure you have good balance to avoid slipping and your hand going into the red circle of death. True, we don't want that. True or false, keep your hands away from the cutting area, the red circle of death. True. It's okay to stack multiple pieces and cut them all at the same time. False. Feed the workpiece slowly into the blade to prevent the blade from breaking. True. Never reach for scrap until the power is off and the blade has stopped. True. Adjust the blade guard so that it barely clears the thickness of your workpiece by about 1/8 of an inch. True. You should adjust the blade guard while the saw is running. A relief cut. I didn't talk about relief cuts. Hold on just a second. So I don't actually have my demonstration of a relief cut anymore. I don't know what happened to it. The classroom's kind of in a lot of disarray right now, mainly because they're painting and everything is out. However, a relief cut is when you cut through a scrap section of your wood, cut a circle, come back through, and you cut out around everything you want. True or false, it's okay to saw through nails and other types of metal that may be in your workpiece. False, definitely false. True or false, you can cut pieces of wood that are less than 3 inches long. False, very, very false. We never do that. So that is everything that we have about the bandsaw.